Hi folks, thanks for joining me. This video is slightly different than my normal ones. Rather than talking about technology and how we implement it and the challenges we face and a number of other different bits and pieces, I'm going to be doing a bit of a reflection on the channel itself and kind of setting the scene as to where I want to take this further. So previously what I've worked on is a number of videos based on my experiences in my normal job role and taking those and creating content that I think other people will find useful. It's generally sporadic. There's generally no real structure to it, but it's useful key bits of information that I can share out. And what I've decided to do is have a slight break from that for the moment to really reevaluate what's going on with the channel and how I can work on more videos going forward in a way that aligns with what I do in my day-to-day and also meaningful to people who are looking to get insight from these videos. So you might have noticed that the channel's name has changed to Platform Perks. So that's essentially the brand which I'll be doing the videos under. And we have some plans later on down the line to create more educational videos, videos which are in more of a kind of like a podcasty type style. So potentially getting some guest speakers in and covering a few different topics. And that's all cool. That's all fine. So those are things that are going to happen. But what I thought I'd do is take the time out to evaluate and talk around some topics just around how I've got to that point. And maybe there's elements in here that people can learn from if they're wanting to do the same thing. And the aim is to be very transparent with why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. So when people do come across the channel, they can see why maybe certain technologies are pitched or why certain approaches are pitched. So the first thing I wanted to do was take a step back and think about why bother creating videos in the first instance. And I started off with a statement. And the statement was that there aren't enough videos that demonstrate how people can easily get started with the Power Platform. And the reason I've made that statement is due to a couple of aspects. One being when I got started, I did it in a very self-starter manner, look at some videos, go onto Microsoft Learn, all those different elements. And then I went away and did a whole load of project work where I've developed those skills a lot further, looked at real world scenarios, examples, worked with different technologies, and that has built that experience out over the past sort of probably around about 10 years in total, with everything to do with IT, with the Power Platform in the latter part of that. But what I didn't want to do was just go in there and make that assumption and go, you know what, there aren't enough videos, I've got to go away and make some. So I had to put together a bit of evidence, and this is to really help focus where my efforts are going to be spent. Because what I could do is say, let's just keep doing the videos that I've been doing before, where I've talked about calendar functionality or integration with the Azure Data Factory, or looking at ChatGPT and making use of those APIs. That's all cool, but there's no major structure to it, and it already assumes that someone has a basic understanding of the product. And I wanted to get to a point where anyone could pick this up regardless of who they are. So rather than maybe aiming to maybe consultants or experts in that field and they want to add some more features, I want to refocus that on individuals who have maybe never touched the Power Platform, never touched applications at all, but they've got business problems and challenges that they need help fixing. The other side of it as well is understanding that how do you get a product to a point where people naturally go into it knowing that they're going to get a certain answer off the back of it. That sounds vague. So if I discuss that in a slightly different way, if you think about doing personal finance, you might go instantly to Excel. And it's that natural link between what your need is and technology that's going to enable you to do that. Or I need to write a letter. You'd go to Word and you'd get that populated and get that all sorted. And I want people to get to a point where they think, I've got a business process, or I've got some manual task that I'm doing at the moment, and I want their go-to to be Power Platform, Power Automate, Power Apps, everything that goes along with that. But that's not going to happen if you talk about really advanced features. That's only going to happen if you talk around products which are easy to use, there's a low barrier to entry, and people don't see it as a challenge learning to use that product. They see it as an opportunity to go, right, I'm going to use this to help me get to the outcome that I'm after. So I put myself into someone's shoes who was going on that journey, and I broke it into kind of three areas. I both broke it into some basic browsing. So if I was in that person's shoes, what type of things would I search for? Academic studies, and by academic studies, broken down to a few other areas, so research articles, journal entries, and so on, to see what other professionals are thinking about this, and also some actual evidence, some numeric values that we can compare to see actually where should some of my effort be spent. So if I look at basic browsing first, I searched around 4 terms. So the first term I searched was just Power Apps. So this is imagining someone's heard the buzzword around the office, they know an app might do what they need to, and they want an introduction to it and maybe a few steps on how to get started. However, when I searched Power Apps, the latest videos which we got were between 3 months to 2 years old. Now that could be due to multiple factors, such as it may be tailored to my own experience of going through YouTube and getting some of those results. The YouTube algorithm may impact that in some way. But fundamentally, if I'm searching up a new bit of technology, I don't want to be looking at something that's 3 months old, 2 years old, especially considering there are new features and changes coming all the time. And even since the inception of the Power Platform to now, the way it's been pitched and the way end users are encouraged to use it has changed massively. And you can see a lot of that through most of the Microsoft campaigns, where it's gone from let's enable maybe IT to go away and build apps for the business to let's now empower end users to go away and do that themselves. Adding to that further, there are updates released monthly to weekly with new preview features coming out. So having videos which are 2 years old, they're just out of date. The second thing I searched was how to build an app. And the videos that you get that come up there are code first. So thinking about using things like C# to go away and build an application. And as an end user or business user, if I get pitched a video that says, you know what, you need to go away and learn this programming language before you can do anything, I'm just going to turn off. I'm not going to bother with it. And I'm ultimately going to end up going out to a third party for them to go away and build my own thing. And I've got some more points on that later on. Again, this is where the studies come into it. I've then looked at low-code app development. Now, searching that up is maybe a strange term for an end user, but this goes to show that even if you do know a little bit more about it, if you're searching up those sort of terms, what comes out? And again, there's still older videos that come out. And rather than actually saying, how do you get started in low-code development, a lot of them are just product comparisons, comparing the Power Platform to other low-code technologies, and actually didn't provide any clear instructions on how, like I said, how to get started. So my takeaway from that is, videos need to be maybe a bit more direct. So people start searching up low-code app development, it should give them an introduction to maybe what that is, but the focus should be actually how do you get started. Now my bias comes into it because I'm Microsoft through and through. That's what I've learned. That's what I use, with an appreciation for other technologies. But generally speaking, I always come back to the Power Platform because that ticks most of the boxes. So I'm going to go away and create videos that are very focused around Microsoft Power Platform. And when I talk around low-code app development, I'll be looking at, right, here's a very brief intro to it, but how to get started from step one. And the idea being with that is if users are following this, they can go through those steps. The other key thing with all of these points are being able to maybe go back and revisit some of those videos and update them. So that could be due to a multiple of factors, that down to re-recording the video, providing updated documentation in the commentary, replying to comments and so on. But what I try to do is keep things like my LinkedIn open, so if people want to reach out, that's something they're able to do. And then the final point, which I think is probably a more common question that people would be asking. So in this instance, it's how can I capture information from different business areas? Now, one answer to that is going down the technology route and using technology to enable that. But even then, if you search that, you get a variety of different topics. A lot of them are around data. A lot of them around finance, a lot of them around elements of app development, but in a variety of different forms, different development environments, disciplines, skills, and so on. So even then, there's no direct route. So again, the other key point, and I reiterate this, is being direct with actually answering a question that aligns to what business users are after. The other side of it as well, and I've already alluded to this, is with the YouTube algorithm of maybe it doesn't matter necessarily what I post. It's how do you make sure that shows up as a top result, and that's again something I'm going to have to learn to figure out actually how does that work in the world of YouTube. What extra support might I need to achieve that? So that's my basic browsing, some cursory searches, imagining I'm in the shoes of an end user. The next one is looking at academic studies. So one of the first articles I came across was in the Journal of Computing Sciences and Colleges, an article by Meg Filing in April 2019. And it touched on a few different elements. Now, this is a few years old, but a lot of it is still relevant to today. And in fact, one of the other articles I touch on is a little bit later and references older terminology. And it speaks about the cost of app development, software development. And it ranges from $430,000 to $2.3 million. And there's probably more that sit outside of those bounds, but the majority of those projects sit within that realm. A lot of them being code first. 31% of them are cancelled before they're completed. 89% cost more than the initial estimate, and only 16.2% completed on time and to budget. And off the back of that article, there's a conclusion that talks around how organisations are increasingly looking for individuals with no code experience, but wanting them to build applications. And in my own experience with that, looking at it from actually going out and consulting, you see the same thing of maybe they're not bringing people in specifically for that, but they're looking at individuals in the business today and how they can use their experience and their skills to go away and build apps based on their processes. So again, pulling that back to the videos, I'm taking away that there's going to be a load of individuals looking to potentially upskill, to build these digital skills, to go away and build low-code apps. The other side of that is projects ranging from 430,000 upwards. For a lot of organisations, that's far too expensive. A lot of smaller organisations, that's far too expensive. And really, maybe all their budgets extend to is maybe a couple of grand for some initial training. And you can't really do that with code-first technologies. With low-code, it becomes a lot more accessible because you've got a full suite of products and applications that allow you to go away and build things. So if I can provide videos and guidance that focus on those areas, then the individuals who are making use of those products can very easily do automation, can very easily build up their skills within budget. It's fully in their control. And where you start looking at those numbers of projects that are being cancelled, again, people run out of money, run out of time. By having that internal within the team and having individuals who are maybe intrinsically motivated to go away and build their own apps just means that those things are more likely to be achieved. Again, I've got no numbers on that, so something that I can go away and learn a bit more about, and something I can do more research on. But initially on that, based on that article, those are the sort of things I'm taking away. The other article that I saw was in a journal which was the Business and Information Systems Engineering, done in 2021 by Alexander Bock and Ulrich Frank, and they mentioned a few different terms in there. What stood out for me was the term low code is potentially coined by Forrester in 2014. So that's 9 years ago. So it's been around for a while. It's obviously becoming a lot more common now, and it's talking around low code technologies in general, and it talks a bit around how maybe they're not as advanced, they lag behind code first approaches. But what it does summarize though is that although it does lag behind, it's enabling people to go away and build their own apps, which is very difficult in a code first approach, especially if you're starting from nothing. And it reduces the effort of routine tasks in implementing business applications. So rather than spending £500,000 doing something taking forever and a day, because in a low code environment a lot of these things exist as standard. It's about making use of those to deliver the outcome that you're after. And again, referring that all the way back to that other content of what am I searching for, elements of cost, the type of people going through and looking at these apps, it makes sense that the videos that I'm creating should align to how do you make use of a platform and the products within it, and align those to the business challenges that organizations face, and really focus on the benefits of automation, but pitching it in such a way that it's not going to super technical detail. So that's what I've got from studies. There's a load more out there that go in a lot more detail, and some of them cover the same points. Some of them debate different platforms. But one thing that I did take away was actually, although there are so many studies and they touch on it in a variety of different ways, not many touch on getting people to start using the Power Platform, or start getting people to start using low-code platforms, which again is an interesting point, considering if the term's been around since 2014, where's all this information? Is there research being done on it? And actually, off the back of the article done by Bock and Frank, it does put a conclusion of actually should we even use the term low code? Is that even a scientific term that we should have in our vocabulary? So there's a load of points on there, and those are elements that I think really go to show that not many people understand low code and how that can value businesses, but also how individuals can see the value in a low code platform to aid them in developing. So again, hopefully those are things that I can cover in our topics, and again I do that in my day-to-day anyway. My next point is looking at actual numbers and evidence, and there's no real studies that I've seen that go into this. A lot of this is my own research, looking at a number of different articles and so on. A lot of the things that I've taken away from those articles are the way we approach learning. A lot more of it has to be remote, on demand, and that's happened a lot since COVID. And the reason for that is it needs to facilitate distant and remote learners. It needs to facilitate individuals who have vastly changing work patterns and schedules. So by creating a catalogue of content that allows you to click onto something as and when they need to, follow a series of sequential steps to get to an output that they're after, it's something I've taken away from that to go, right, that's what I want to put into my videos. The other side of it is people who have already got some basic understanding and they're looking for new concepts and looking to develop themselves. So if I can structure the videos in such a way that potentially align with how an individual might develop from having no skills to being an expert, potentially even align that to industry recognized roles. Something that comes to mind is things like the DDAT framework, and about how you can move from role to role, look at the different skills, see how you can increase those skills over time. Actually, if you can apply the videos in that way, then it means that an individual might find it easier to follow that content. The other thing I've seen as well is weirdly, and I've never really considered this, but actually videos and on-demand training can actually increase motivation and a passion for learning. I didn't see too much of a description as to why that happens or how that happened, but I can kind of see in myself that if I've always got content available and it's something that I'm interested in, I want to work on, I'm more likely to dip and dive into it, refer to it, and even with some of the videos I've done already, I've had a lot of great feedback where individuals have used it as a guide, revisited it a number of times, and used it as essentially a how-to guide on how to build in bits of functionality. And again, if I can get the same type of content with newer videos, I'm hoping that that's something that individuals can add to their own knowledge base and share with others. And then actually, if we look at the stats, so looking at the YouTube categories, so every time you create a video, there are categories that are assigned with it. And I was speaking to a colleague of mine about this the other day around how they've got someone in the family who looks at personal finance, and that's something really interesting that comes into this. So top 5 categories that fall onto YouTube are making money, something that a lot of people are searching up. So you can imagine that's probably the case with current economic situations. Digital marketing, personal finance, education, and tech. And the areas that I'm going to be focusing on are education and tech. and more so on the education side of how can we use this bit of technology to go away and do something, educate someone on how it's used. There will still be an emphasis on, well, there'll still be a covering some of the tech elements because there'll be new features and products that I think people need to be aware of. But the key focus is how do I go away and do this thing? Just so happens that tech falls into it. So, bit of a conclusion. The what I want to be doing now with these videos is looking at creating videos that target beginners who are starting their journey using technology, and the focus will likely be on the Power Platform because that's my background. I'll be defining some concepts for advanced users, like I've done previously, but there'll be a lot less than the beginner content. I'll also be still doing sessions around architecture and whiteboarding sessions because I think that takes my own experience and helps to maybe demonstrate how I've taken my own advice and applied it in a real world scenario, and individuals can maybe see the links between my experience and theirs and see how they may tackle a new situation. But also reflecting on all the previous points I've gone through, the landscape in which training is provided, the landscape in which technology evolves, it's always updating. So right now, this is a great point in time of this is what I want to go away and do. However, in 6 months' time, 12 months' time, that might vastly change, and I need to keep on top of it and reevaluate. But that's also where I think you, as my audience, can get involved and help me with that, which takes on to some of the challenges. So one of the things that I've had faced previously is sometimes I get really buzzed and want to create a load of videos, and I go away and do that, share them all out, a bunch of LinkedIn posts, and we're good to go. Other times, there's a bit of writer's block where you say, I should probably create a video, but you just lack the motivation to go away and do it because there's other factors, other things going on in your life. For example, getting married a couple of weeks ago, that's going to have a big impact on what I can do and what can output. And the way I think I can get around that is when I do get that motivation to create a number of videos in bulk. But also sometimes like writer's block comes in where I don't have any topics to talk about. And although I can look at what's on the roadmap for the Power Platform or what's recently been released, I can cover that to an extent. Definitely, I can do videos on some of those elements, be short and sharp and to the point on those. But I think what would really help is common scenarios that you guys are facing in a day to day. And if you are brand new people who have just come across this video to go, you know what, I want to automate something, or I want to capture information from people across the business, is actually vocalizing those, send them to myself, and I can go away and do a video just on those elements. Because what I want to do is get to a point where I can gather feedback from my audience, create a response to that, and have a discussion on it. And that takes us into some of the other elements I want to touch on around podcasting, around taking a lot of these common scenarios and seeing how they change over time. And actually, is there a better way in terms of getting people excited about low code and talking around the products that they can use in their day to day? So the next steps, what am I going to do? So there's going to be a gap between this video and my next set of videos. Definitely. There's a lot of things going on in my role at the moment, which means I just don't have loads of time to do that. But I'm hoping during that time I can capture a number of topics and things to discuss, create new content, maybe define a bit of a schedule as to when videos need to be posted. You see some channels who post every day, some channels post every week. I think what I'll be leaning towards is a weekly post with potentially ad hoc things throughout, depending on if I see something really exciting at that point. And the idea being is I'll do a bulk set of videos and then slowly release those out. But again, that's something I need to run through because I've not done this before. That comes into defining the content, what I'm going to be talking about. I'm very likely going to ping a survey around my colleagues and get some ideas from them as to what they want to cover to really get the ball rolling, and hopefully that generates some interest, and then I can get more people in other businesses to give me some of their pointers and advice. I do have some topics already I want to go through, and I'll be doing some videos on those shortly. But like I said, with all of that, there's going to be a gap between this video and them. So that's it really. I'm hoping that people enjoy this different type of content, and I think I might do more of these where I just talk around concepts and products and services and all that good stuff. But what I wanted to do is really set the scene as to what's happening next, gaining feedback from individuals at this point, and really getting people excited about low code. Yeah, as that study stated, not too many people know about low code. Not too many people know how it can help them. And what I want to do is get people shouting about it, so that we can look at how we can become more efficient in the way we do things, how we can create a community of experts, and share knowledge between us. Because ultimately, if we can develop things quicker and easily, it just benefits everyone involved. And if we can share those experiences with one another, again, it makes everyone's lives a lot easier. And if you look at it from a business standpoint, if you become loads more efficient, you can do more things, and ultimately you can generate higher revenue as well. So loads of benefits for doing this, and hopefully people see those. But any feedback, comments you have, put them in the comments below. Give me a shout on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to reply to that feedback. Great. Right. Hope you enjoy the video, and until next time.